Hi, Jane here. Welcome back. This week I want to talk to you about how to write in detail. We're going to take a look at descriptive writing. Details can be your best friend, truly, but you want to make sure they don't become your worst enemy either. Uh, Learning to use detail correctly is just a really valuable tool for any writer to learn. Um, when it's done well, writing with detail just brings your reader in. It hooks your reader. If you listen to my last podcast, you find it on my website. I just published it the first of this week. We're talking about attention grabbers in that. And this goes right along with that, actually. I wasn't thinking that at the time, but it really does. Um, when you think about some of your favorite books, those books that I think all of us, especially those that are interested in writing, you have those favorite books from maybe you read them long ago and you still have a copy on your bookshelf and you still pull them out and read them every once in a while. They become like old friends. Think about those books. One of your favorite ones, I think you'll find that the writer was engaging you through the whole thing, and you became very familiar with some aspect of it. Um, Whatever that looked like, it drew you back. And I think when you look at that, you'll find that they had a very wise use of detail, among other things. I mean, that's not the only thing to writing a good book, or a good blog post, but it really does help. So when I first got involved with becoming aware of writing in detail, I was in a college class, and I went to the college that I graduated from. I had transferred there as a junior and found myself in this one particular creative writing class. I had just arrived. I virtually knew no one at the beginning of it, and I found myself in this class with all of these, what I felt like were really highly talented people my own age. I mean, these were my peers. And I just, at that time, that's been a long time ago, but my inner critic was just wild. And I didn't I didn't feel like I qualified to even be in the class. And so they brought up the subject of detail in that class. I remember the lessons in it. And through the course of all of that class and others, I really became so aware of how the layer of detail and how you present it can be so effective. And there were several of the stories that were shared in that class and the rest of them that I took there that just really, really have stayed with me forever. I still remember them, and I graduated from there a long time ago. But detail is just very important as a writer, and how to work with it well is just, if you can master that. If you I don't think we ever master it in the sense that I now know everything about it and I'm perfect, but when it becomes a tool that you use regularly in your writing, ah, it puts you way ahead of someone who doesn't know how to do that. Now, back in the late 80s, it was 1986 actually, I ran into a book that changed me again. I think if you look back, maybe you're not like me, but I think a lot of you are. You look back through the course of your writing and through your life, and there have been people and books, and even there have been television programs and things like that that have really impacted you and added something to your life and added to you as a writer. And I know that all of our life comes into our writing, but there are some people that speak into our lives in magnificent ways. And that happened to me when I found this book, and it's called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. And it's out now in its 30th year anniversary edition, and it's still as powerful and dynamic a book today as it was when it first came out in 1986. And Natalie Goldberg, she does not know me from Adam, and I have never met her, unfortunately, but she managed to change my life through that book in ways that were profound to me. And so I encourage you, if you haven't heard of that book, if you've not read it, or maybe if you had a copy or read it a long time ago, go and get you another copy of it and mark it up, make it. It became a guidebook for me. It became just a source of inspiration and guidance to me. And I know that there are many of you that would feel the same way about it. There's a link down in the description box on this video to take you to where you can get a copy of it easily. Now, this is kind of, I'm just thinking here, this is just kind of a crash course, if you will, on how to write in detail and do it well. I mean, anybody can sit down and just put a bunch of, adjectives and adverbs together, and yeah, there's a lot of detail, and you just tell and tell and tell. But we're talking about using this tool effectively. And effectively, what is that? Any kind of effectiveness for any kind of writing, to me, is engaging the reader, holding the reader's attention to the end of your piece, and leaving that reader looking for more. Not that it's not finished, but what else have they written? What else is there that they've done? I like this author. That's what effectiveness is in the overall sense. Yes, some of you have, if you, depending on the kind of book you have, your message is vitally important no matter what you're writing. Yes, but if nobody reads that message, how effective is that? It's really not. But if you can work at this level and write in an engaging way, then you're going to reach far more people in a positive way with that message, whatever that message may be. So, this is kind of a crash course in this. And basically, I've just listed out 7 main things, basic things that you can do, to just a guideline for you. Is it exhaustive? Oh my goodness, no. No, we'll just leave it at that. There's so much more detail that you could go into on each part and bring other things in. But I think these cover a really good, strong, basic core element that if you follow all of this, and it's not that hard, it's just adjusting your thinking a little bit, you will begin to write more effectively whatever it is you're writing, and you'll just become natural with it. The first thing is that you want to, in order to write in detail effectively, you want to pull the reader into all 5 senses. You want them to experience exactly what you've experienced, what you've seen, what you've felt, tasted, heard, smelled. You want to draw them into where they're experiencing the story, the action, the content, whatever it is. You want them you want to take them from just words on a page down into feeling it and experiencing it. That's a strong, strong hook. And you have to have enough detail in there to draw them in. Now, I've got a quote here from Natalie Goldberg out of that book, Writing Down the Bones. And it just struck me. I just had the book out the other day and was looking at it again. So I want to read this to you and share it with you. She says, "We are important, and our lives are important, magnificent really, and their details are worthy to be recorded. This is how writers must think. This is how we must sit down with pen in hand. We were here. We are human beings. This is how we lived. Let it be known the earth passed before us. Our details are important. Otherwise, if they are not, we can drop a bomb and it doesn't matter." To me, when I think about that, it's so profound. The details of my life, of your life, they're rich. The small things, the big things, the things that that we just kind of glaze over and take for granted. That old adage, slow down, take time to smell the roses. We need to do that because it's in that slowing down, it's in that taking the time and effort to experience it, to become aware of the details yourself. That's the number one step. You have to become aware of details around you. And then things that you experience can easily become part of your own story, part of something that you've experienced in real life. You can use those details and plant that in something that you're writing. It's just, it works that way. So you have to bring them to all of those five senses and to where they're feeling the emotions that are felt in that time as well. The second thing is you need to use precise language. You have to move away from sweeping generalizations. Sometimes they're okay, they're appropriate in some places, but when you're thinking of writing in detail, you want to paint a picture, not just give a news report. Uh, I think of an example of when a boy is runs into a scary dog, meets up with a scary dog. Okay, so the boy ran into a scary dog. That doesn't tell you very much. But if you redo that to where you say, Dan scuffed through the sand at water's edge, his head down, eyes watching the toes of his wet, sandy tennis shoes as he passed by shells and raggedy bits of driftwood. The burly Rottweiler loped toward him, barking as if ready to attack, the hair on his back standing at attention. Dan's head jerked up, his fear feeling like a sudden slam of ice water all over him. That's about the boy met the dog, but now you're engaged. You know something. You're in the story. You're now waiting for the next element. What happened? What happened? When you just read about the boy ran into a dog, it just kind of leaves you there. But when you write with appropriate detail, it takes you into it, takes the reader there. That's the goal. The third thing is you want to keep some organization to your writing. That doesn't mean you want to put it down in an outline, and present it that way, but you want to use organization within your details to where the reader can follow it easily. And so you may depending on what you're writing, of course, you may use the element of time, the chronology of events to keep things going smoothly in a flow. We're going to talk about flow one of these days in some detail. You can use uh, events, places, spatial qualities, or you can use the importance of the events that are taking place. Any There's any number of ways that you can use organization, but you have to keep that in mind as you're writing in any form, but especially in this way, because you don't want to confuse the reader. You don't want to throw him off the trail. Have you ever read a book or an article or something online or whatever, and somewhere in the middle of it you kind of have to stop and you go, what? And you have to go back and reread part of it? Sometimes, not every time, sometimes it may be new and complex information, but sometimes it's just the fact that you missed the flow somewhere. The author went left and you went right, and you lost the trail. So you had to go back and find it. Well, you avoid that by being very clear with your organization, for one. The fourth thing that you can do is be very careful in how you choose your adjectives, your modifiers, your describers, your descriptors. Um, you have to, it's really smart if you can avoid the adjectives that are they are technically an adjective. They are modifying the way an adjective does, but they're really not describing. They leave you not really knowing what that means. What am I saying? We use these terms all the time in common language, conversation, and in a ton of writing also. And I am guilty of all of these same things. It depends on what level you're writing at, what your purpose is. But if you're trying to be really effective in something, um, if you go to dinner somewhere and you say, "Oh, that was delicious," that is technically modifying, but what is it saying? What define delicious? What does that mean? You can be so much more communicative by actually taking the time to state what was in the meal and what made it. What was your what were your sensory feels? What was the emotion that you felt? What did your taste buds say? What you bring so much more information to it in a simple flow of words that again it draws the reader in. When you're describing that, you should make them want to either ooh I want to eat that, or ooh I don't like that, but make it so real that they could figure it out. That's choosing adjectives well. The fifth thing is to really do the same thing with adverbs. Your modifiers obviously are detail words, but one of the big things with adjectives is you want to stay away from, as much as you possibly can, stay away from adverbs that end in ly. Um, an example that comes to mind is the bird flew slowly over the house. Well, instead of flew slowly with the ly word, you could just as well say the bird floated, or soared, or wheeled. It paints a deeper picture and gives more detail very simply than if you just say slowly. Slowly. Words that deal with speed like that, words that deal with size, big, little, things like that, those don't really give much detail. Big compared to what? Small compared to what? You can find more effective detail words to use in those places, and it just makes your writing, it just makes it pop. It helps it so much. Um, Another thing you can do is to replace any short little adverb or some little descriptive word by writing a fuller piece of detailed text. Keep it within the context of what you're doing, like I did with the boy meeting the dog. Rather than just try to say some short little thing, put some detail to it, because again, just like in the other example, it just adds to the detail and to the richness of it. The sixth thing is that you can also use figurative writing. What does that mean? You can use analogies, similes, metaphors. You can use them. What you have to watch in those is that you don't overuse them because then they just become the. And you have to be sure that you don't um, confuse people with them. Make sure that they're original, that they're not cliches, and that they do actually really do say and mean what you mean them to say. You got that? That's a little bit fun, but they can be tricky, and you want to make sure that they're really making your point, because there again, you don't want to you want to draw the reader in and not just confuse them. In a nutshell, details are wonderful. Number 7 is, of course, that you want to make sure that you don't use too much detail. Too much of a good thing is too much. So you want to give enough detail to hook the reader, but once you've hooked him, you want to draw him in. You don't want to drown him. You don't want to just bury him in details. You want to hook him and pull him through the waters the way you want him to come. You want to bring him through your writing and come to arrive at your conclusions, arrive at your message, get it, and get through to the end and want more. You don't want to bog him down to where it takes so long to read this. Now, there's a fine line between the right amount of detail and too much. How do you find that line? I have a very simple way that I tell my writing clients, and it's very effective. It's worked over and over and over and over again, and it's very simple. And it is just simply read your writing to yourself out loud. Out loud, not quietly. Read it to yourself out loud. Um, by doing that, it puts you in the reader's chair rather than the writer's chair. It's always been a truth that a really good writer is also an avid reader. It just the two go hand in hand. And writers who love to read recognize good writing because it's good reading. And so put yourself over in that reader's chair and read your material out loud, and where it be honest with yourself, be open-minded, just listen to what you're actually saying, and you'll find the places that'll make you stumble, that'll make you go, huh? Those are the places. Draw a red circle around them, and you know that that's where you need to go back and make some changes. You'll also find places that'll be too thin on detail. It'll leave you going, well, I don't know where that. It'll leave you with questions. Circle it, go back and answer those questions. When you're finished, come back, reread the whole thing out loud again. Whether you're writing just a short blog post or the great American novel or anything in between, that is a key tool right there, that I just take it and run with it. Reading it out loud and going back and forth and editing and revising, it is just priceless for you. It's an excellent way to work with that. Um, that's my little take on details. I appreciate you coming along for the ride. I hope this has helped you. Please, I want you to go out and write this week and pay attention to details. Pay attention to the details around you. When you sit down and have your next meal, sit down and just be aware of what's going on around you. What's taking place. You have to become aware of that out in your life in order for it to come into the world of your writing. Hope this has helped you. Have a great week this week. Thank you so much. God bless.